that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary. And you're going to have to keep on saying that. You're going to have to say that I am a proletarian. I am the people. I'm not the pig. You got to make a distinction. And the people are going to have to attack the pig. The people are going to have to stand up against the pig. That's what the pastors are doing. That's what the pastors do it all over the world. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
The check is in the mail. Well, this story gives all new meaning to it. These homeowners dropped their property tax payments in the mail as usual, and the checks were cashed right away, but not by the tax collector.
I thought, oh my gosh, did I forget?
Kathy Pham of San Jose was surprised to get this delinquency notice in the mail, saying she never paid her property taxes, but she thought sure she did.
My husband actually took the check down to the post office and dropped it off.
In fact, her bank statement showed that check had cleared months ago.
I'm going to go to the county on Monday. I'm going to tell them that, hey, you guys cashed my check. And then my husband said, hey, let's look at the check. And that's when I almost fell over.
The check image showed a very different check than the one Kathy wrote. Criminals had stolen it from the mail, then used a pen to squeeze letters between the ones Kathy wrote to form a new name.
They kind of fit their name into those letters.
That person cashed her check, making off with her $2,400.
Not only did I have to pay the property tax again, I paid all that late fee.
Kathy went right down to Wells Fargo Bank. Surely her bank would refund her the money.
They denied it because I waited too long.
And I was in the other room and he went, bah!
The same thing happened to Jody Glazer of Los Altos and her husband, Paul. They dropped their property tax payment into a blue mailbox outside the post office. 3 months later, they got a late notice from the county.
I'm like, I know I paid it. I know I saw the check hit the account.
So they clicked on the check image. A big shock.
Clearly, the check had been altered and cashed by somebody else.
The criminals probably know this. There's a chemical that will wipe away the ink.
To their surprise, the check image showed somebody had wiped off the name of the tax collector and put in a different one.
There was a woman's name. It was obviously not to the tax board.
The thief took their nearly $28,000, and the couple still had to pay their property taxes plus penalties. Another $30,000.
So now we're out $60,000.
They went back to their bank, also Wells Fargo, expecting a refund.
We, within 30 days, got an automated denial.
Same thing. Well, your claim was denied because you waited too long.
They said you have to notify within 30 days of the statement.
I went in as soon as I found out. So how can they say I waited too long?
Wells Fargo pointed to its 42-page deposit account agreement, which says customers must review bank statements each month and report unauthorized payments within 30 days or lose rights to a claim. But the homeowners say they did review their statements and they did not show any fraud.
The statement only shows the date and the amount. It doesn't say who cashed the check.
It only says check. As a result, they had no idea it was scammers who cashed their checks until the county sent delinquency notices 3 months later.
The only way we would have known is if we had downloaded the actual check and looked at it. Who does that?
But Wells Fargo says that's exactly what customers should do. The bank updated its account agreement last November to say customers must also review check images to preserve rights to a claim. That explicit clause was not in the agreement when the Glazers and Kathy filed their claims. But Wells Fargo said check images were always available to them. In a statement, Wells Fargo said, "We empathize with our customers' situation. We never want to see anyone experience a financial scam or fraud. Our priority is to support our customers and raise awareness for them to avoid, detect, and promptly report incidents so we can act quickly together."
So we learned our lesson. Do not pay a big bill like that in the mail.
Turns out a thief deposited the Glazers' nearly $28,000 check into an ATM at a U.S. bank in Minnesota. And the mailbox where they dropped their check? It was sealed off and out of service due to many thefts at that box. Kathy was told the thief cashed her check at a Wells Fargo branch in South San Francisco. But for her, a happier ending After 7 on Your Side encouraged her to appeal, Wells Fargo did refund Kathy's money.
It was such a relief.
The bank did not say why it refunded Kathy, but not the Glazers, citing privacy rules. But in a letter to the couple, Wells Fargo said it would continue trying to recover their funds.
Some random person stole the check and was easily able to write their name and cash it. That could happen all the time then.
I'm so traumatized. I don't think I'm going to be writing a check in a while.
Yeah, so frustrating. Experts say mail thieves look for envelopes that may contain a check, like utility bills and even birthday cards. And they know those blue envelopes contain property tax payments. So remember, once a thief gets your check, they also have your personal information, including your bank account number. So the easy fix here is to pay electronically, which is pretty standard these days.
Has no one ever told these people not to send money in the mail in any form? No? Now, unfortunately, this news reporter isn't quite wrong in that if you're going to pay, especially such large amounts, it is safer to do so online. And if you must make your payment in a physical check form or money order, or even still using your debit or credit card, just go to the physical location. Who even uses checks anymore? Well, if no one has even told you, I'll help you out and tell you. Never send money in the mail, people, for this exact reason. Ain't nobody got time for that. Now, the first husband dropped it off at the post office itself. Then the wife left too much space between her lettering to allow the thief to then fit in their letters and alter some of the others. I mean, did you see that spacing? Lord. They waited 3 months to check anything, and if they hadn't received a delinquency notice, I believe they still wouldn't have checked to this day. This, to me, speaks to a certain level of wealth because I don't know, but most people I do know are making a majority of their payments online only. But they also are always double checking their accounts to make sure payments were received and posted properly. Most people do not leave anything to chance, as they don't have much time to spare in dealing with late fees, stolen money, or even the ability to double pay. Now, the second husband dropped it in the blue box right outside the post office itself, and then after going through the mail system, appears to have been stolen just like the first out of the actual post office. They also received a notice 3 months later, which, again, is wild that the city isn't sending notices within 30 days like most companies do. But the difference I heard here was that they did double check their account and they saw that the check hit. However, their alteration came from an ink removing chemical that completely wiped out what they wrote, and then the thief just rewrote their own name. So they had to pay twice $28,000, but the second time they had to add on an additional $2,000 for late fees. Ooh, child, that is an expensive lesson. And on the rare occasion that I have submitted a check, which has been over a decade now, but I've also seen it hit the account with no description except the word check in that little descriptor box. But you know what I did? I clicked on the link to make sure it hadn't been altered. I wanted to make sure I wrote the correct amount to the correct place, that I had the signature correct, everything, etc., anything. It could have been my fault. I just didn't want to leave anything to chance. You can't trust anyone, even these tellers, but especially these banks. And then seeing the first altered check, that teller should also be investigated because, ma'am, you know that looks wonky as all get out. Not only does there need to be an investigation at the banks that these checks were cashed at to see who did the cashing, but also an investigation at the individual post offices to see who is filtering out and stealing checks from the public. Then these two people need to seek civil action against the thieves to recoup their money, because this is just ridiculous. I would also recommend the city stop providing color-coded envelopes, as that just makes it 10 times easier to spot it as a payment or a check. But now for the bank. Did you hear that? 42-page deposit account agreement. 42 pages. Now, this is where legalese is just becoming too much. When is enough going to be enough with these big corporations using our money to profit, all the while penalizing and tying us up in legal mumbo jumbo just to hold a couple of dollars every couple of weeks? And only after these instances did Wells Fargo update their agreement to state the consumer must open and download the link to view the check. And again, as far as I can tell, that only goes for online banking. I mean, think about it. You submit a check for $28,000 and are expecting it to be removed from your account. And when the physical paper statement arrives, it only says check. in the descriptor and doesn't include a photocopied picture of the deposited check for your confirmation. According to your eyes on that statement, you're correct. There was no fraud. Now, of course, I wanted to know more about potential bank fraud and in particular, how the banks got bailed out themselves in 2008, but now seem to have an issue reimbursing their consumers from fraud cases, which I also learned they ultimately can deduct on their taxes and have an easier time recouping fraud losses as they just charge the consumer higher interest rates or even chargebacks. So if we're going to be real, the consumer is the one taking all the risk and is being held to this higher standard and certain legal standards that the banks themselves aren't even held liable to. So in my opinion, their level of responsibility should be stricter in relation to their level of power. And we know they have an ungodly amount of power when they're only supposed to be a facilitator of financial transactions. Yet they take our money, make money off of it by committing usury, investing it, or just charging various fees to us. And with all these routes of revenue, the consumer is not given a percentage of the dividends and profit or any kind of stock in the bank company itself. Then you run the risk of being debanked, which is the closure or denial of bank accounts for political or religious reasons. And this has become a major politically charged issue in the United States. Such as in Canada in February 2022, the Canadian government invoked the Emergencies Act to freeze bank accounts of individuals linked to the Freedom Convoy, which protested COVID-19 vaccine mandates. So much for my body, my choice, right? Over 200 accounts, including personal and business, were affected by banks like RBC and CIBC to disrupt protest funding. So the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, used the Emergencies Act to authorize freezing bank accounts, credit cards, and suspending insurance on vehicles used in the blockades without a court order. Then banks were instructed to report their relationships with these protesters to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So they pretty much were spying. And this was to target organizers and participants involved in the Ottawa and border blockades. All the way over to China, which was extremely difficult for me to find any information on, even though I remember hearing about this when it happened on what I like to call YouTube news. I was only able to find one article, though, confirming what I remembered. But in May of 2022 in China, Reuters did an article about 3 banks in China's Henan province, which froze at least $178 million, but up to $1.5 billion, with no information on why or how long. Businesses and individuals were locked out of their own accounts. Now, this took place on April 18th, and when the article was written in May, it was still going on, with the original statement from the banks being that the issue occurred due to an update to internal systems, and then never said another word. Now, some people tried going to the physical headquarters for an explanation, but the banks, they were one step ahead. They already had police ready and waiting to turn away these people with no explanation as to why they were withholding their funds. These people were unable to pay employees, purchase homes or properties, or even pay themselves or purchase groceries. In America, Trump stated he and his family were debanked and have had several issues with banks since 2021. Edward Snowden, while he was not explicitly debanked in a widely reported incident, the legal and financial actions taken against him by the United States government, combined with his exile, effectively separated him from the U.S. banking system. There are plenty of religious or ideological entities that have had their bank accounts unexpectedly closed with no recourse. There have even been stories in Europe of certain political opponents having their accounts closed due to protesting against the current political system itself. So I say, debank ourselves. If we destroy giant corporate banks and stick to local or state-run banks, we would have way more control and profit amongst our own state or local economy. And then we would have more of a hand in our own country's economy and therefore more in the world economy. There is actually a great example of this in the Great Bank of North Dakota. Look into it when you have a moment, but it is a successful example of a state-ran / state-owned bank, not owned by foreign oligarchs who don't even live in this country, but owned by each individual person who lives and operates out of the state of North Dakota. Now, I have a bank account strictly to pay bills online and for direct deposit. As soon as it hits my account, I pay all the bills and then I take out everything else. I don't trust these mega banks and I would recommend you don't either. Let me know what you think down below. Like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.